Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm going to be going over my wrap up for the month of June. In this video, I basically go over my stats for the month just for fun. Kind of for me, I keep track of those things now. And I'm also going to go over my top 5 books from the month. And this was an amazing month. Even though I didn't read as much as I wanted to, I still got a lot read and I had a lot of high quality books to go over. So I'm really excited to discuss those. I'll probably go over really briefly a couple of the worst books I read in the month, but I don't totally go in depth on those because in this we're just talking about the best of the best. So let's go ahead and dive into my wrap up for June. Okay everyone, so June was a really great month for me. It was kind of a little slower going with the amount of books that I wanted to read because I did take a little brief few day PTO kind of thing to go wine tasting with my mom, and my birthday, it was my birthday month, so you know, did a few different celebrations, and so, you know, I just wasn't reading as much as I expected, but I still did have a really good month, and I'm gonna go over those stats in just a minute. Before I dive into my stats and my top reads, you know, please remember to hit that subscribe button if you're new to my channel. This is my wrap up for the month where I just go over like the top 5 reads and everything. I don't go over every book that I read in June because now this year I started doing weekly wrap ups. So if you want a detailed description or my reviews on every book that I read, make sure you check out my weekly wrap ups. I do have a playlist and it should be the 2024 weekly reads, I believe. So make sure to check those out. You know, you can always go back and watch my entire playlist of all the books that I've read so far. But anyways, that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and dive into some of my stats. So in June, I read 29 books. I did have one DNF. And I did feel really bad about that. I'm not going to go into it. It was a new author and they'd asked me to read one of their books and it just wasn't really working for me. And so I didn't want to leave or say anything bad about this author or their book. So I basically just decided to DNF it. But you know, I felt really bad about that. But you know, I had so much to do in June, so I really needed to get to it. So anyways, I had 29 books read. I read 11,712 pages. So still pretty decent. I didn't hit everything on my TBR. So right now I'm trying to hit some of those books because I want to make sure I read those. Those are pretty important reads for me. So what we have for the ratings wise was I had 3 6 stars. I think that's a new record for me. I may have had it before, but I had some really good books this month. So 3 6 stars is pretty amazing. And of course, those will be in my top reads that I'm going to go over briefly. Well, not briefly, but in a minute. Then I had 11 5 stars, 2 4.5 stars, 9 4 stars, 2 3.5 stars, 1 2.5 star, and 1 2 star. So overall, I think it was a pretty amazing month. I had lots of 5 stars and a few 6, so I can't complain. It was a great month. Some of the like the books that I read, I did have 8 arcs for the month, and I read 15 ebooks and then 14 audiobooks. I only read like, I think 1 physical book, so I'm not really doing good on like my physical TBR so far this year, but oh well, it is what it is. It's so much easier for me to read on my Kindle and take it everywhere with me, so that's what I do a lot of the time, but I do need to get better on that. So I read, I think it was actually 10 contemporary because I changed one around. I realized it was small town. So I believe I had 10 contemporary, 9 dark romance. There's a lot of dark romance. 2 historical romances, 1 reverse harem, 3 small town, 1 post-apocalyptic book, and 3 alien romances. So quite a mix there. You know, I usually read a lot of dark romance or mafia romance, and I don't think I really read any mafia romance this month, so that was kind of crazy for me. So I'm sure I'll be getting back into that soon, who knows. So anyways, those are the stats that I wanted to go over just briefly. So let's talk about my favorite books of the month. So these are the top 5 books. And it is kind of hard to narrow it down. You know, I had 3 6 stars, so those automatically have to go in the top 5. And I had 11 5 stars. So that's a lot of 5 stars to narrow it down to just like 2 of them. So I had kind of hard time, but I figured it out. So the first one I want to bring up, and I'm so sad it hasn't come yet, but it's When Hearts Collide by Victoria Loom. I don't have the physical copy yet, but I'm dying to get it. I can't wait. I actually won because I'm part of her ARC team, and I actually won I think it's going to be signed copy. I'm not sure, but I did win a copy off of the team, so I'm just waiting for that to come. Hopefully it'll come soon because I loved this book so much. I read the ARC for it, obviously, and this is a billionaire teacher-student, super angsty, slow burn romance. And I can't believe it, but like I actually cried while reading this. Like I got so emotional and like invested in this couple. And I think it was just so well done. I mean, the angst and the slow burn is perfection in this. Like I really think it's the perfect way to do a slow burn. I mean, building that like tension and the longing, like this mutual pining, it was like making me crazy wanting them to be together. So anyways, in this book we have Ryland, and he is actually the COO of this huge company. He's kind of like the face of the company. He has a twin brother who's kind of, I think, the CEO, but he's kind of more of the face because his brother doesn't really like to do that. And so but his true love is actually like teaching. He loves being a professor. So even though he's doing that and has so much going on with the company, he also takes time and he's a professor, like kind of part-time. Certain times he's able to do it. And this book starts out in LA. And he actually lives in New York, his company and everything, but he's out in LA at this college teaching. And that's where he meets Millie. And Millie is like a sister of a character from a previous book that's like set in LA too, from Victoria Loom, which I haven't read that series. And now I really want to go back because I really want to read Victoria's backlist. Like she's one of my new favorite authors that I've discovered. And I've just been really loving her like contemporary, like billionaire type of romances. So anyways, she is, starting college. She's very focused, very career driven. She wants to do good in school. She's not really interested in dating. She's very focused. And she basically kind of stumbles in late to the class. It's a bad first meeting. And she kind of stumbles in, falling onto the ground. And he basically scolds her in front of the class. And she's so humiliated. And he's very like drawn to her immediately, constantly looking at her, like, but very frustrated with his interest in her. And she basically decides to prove him like that she's serious. She's all about this. She needs his recommendation for the special school that she wants to go to in New York. And so they end up kind of building this teacher-student relationship, and he really respects her. But there's this like very undercurrent of sexual tension and interest. Something goes awry at this school. I don't want to say what or whatever, but it ends up being like a time jump of a few years where like he had to leave the school for his reasons. And so now she's at that school in New York that she really wanted to go to. It's a special program. And guess who's going to be her teacher? But Ryland. So now it's like, I think it was like 2 years later, and he is forced to have this girl that really like captured his heart and like he was very interested in, and he has to try and fight that attraction. And so it's this slow burn of like this tension building, and these two are like so into each other but can't be together because of the teacher-student thing. There are also other things keeping them apart because of his company and like this trust and the way it's set up, so that like, you know, anybody he marries has to be in the company, and not, she wouldn't be able to do the career she wants. So there's all these other things that come into play. He has a lot of like kind of self-hatred and issues going on. So he has his own demons. But he does have this, his company runs like this really like cool, kind of club and for like high society, rich people, like, and they actually have kind of sex stuff at this club. So there's a whole floor for like primal play because he's really into that. And so she finds out and she tries to get it so she can be his little, you know, girl that he chases after, and it's hot. So I already talked too much, but I absolutely loved this. I thought it was a lot more emotional for like a teacher student than I was expecting, and I really loved the slow burn. It was so angsty, and you could feel the sexual connection and the chemistry, and it was just so great. So I had to give it 6 stars. Some of the kinks, you have the primal play, there is spanking, breath play, toys, some butt stuff going on. And I just had such a good time. So again, this one I ended up giving 6 stars, and then it was 4 chilies, and I would highly recommend it. Okay, the next one I had was another 6 star, and this was When the Earl Met His Match by Stacy Reid. Stacy Reid is one of my favorite historical romance authors now. I just love her so much. I think she does something a little different with her books, and I really love this one. This is the 4th book in the, I believe it's Wedded by Scandal series, and it's my favorite one out of the series. I had seen a lot of people talk about it, but I always have to read series in order, so it took me a while to get to this, but it just had so much of the things that I absolutely love. I am a sucker for pregnant but not with his baby, and I just love it. I love watching a man fall for a child that's not his own and being supportive and like a good father, and so we have that here. So in this we have Hugh. He's the future Earl of Ashbury, and he actually puts out an advertisement for a wife because his dad really needs him to get married. He's sick. He's not doing well. He knows he's dying soon, and he needs his son set up, you know, with a wife. He has also raised Hugh to like basically, you do not fall in love. You need a marriage of convenience. Do not fall in love, because he had such a bad heartbreak with Hugh's mother and like affairs and just kind of craziness. So he was like, never fall in love. It's the worst thing you can do. And so that's kind of been drilled in Hugh's head. Hugh is actually mute as well. So there is some sign language and a little bit of a language issue in the beginning, or communication issue, I should say. But when Phoebe sees this advert and like for a wife, it's so like cold and just all business-like that she literally writes him and kind of calls him out on his bullshit and is like telling him, you need to like romance and woo a woman. This is not how you court and get a wife. And so they end up kind of having this friendship that builds through letters, and they're writing back and forth, and he's very intrigued by her. She has no idea he's an earl. She just thinks he's like a man of privilege and wealth. And so when she gets compromised and she is now pregnant, and the guy basically kind of took a payout instead of being with her because her parents didn't want her to be with him, she is worried because she overhears her mother basically saying she's gonna, you know, probably have the baby go to one of those baby farms, which babies die and they get put into like, it's just really bad situations. So she decides to flee and go to this guy who is basically advertising for a wife so that she could get married and be safe and be able to have her baby. When she gets there and she realizes he's an earl, he's going to be an earl, she feels horrible. She tells him everything straight off the bat, and that's what I loved, is that she communicates immediately like, hey, I'm pregnant, you know, I was compromised, and da da da. And he actually was like, no, we can make this work. This can be a marriage of convenience. And so that's basically what happens. They have a marriage of convenience, and he kind of tells her, you know, I don't want to fall in love. She learns like sign language and everything, and like, you know, it's just very sweet. So I really loved this. You know, it's like there's really no sex for a lot of this book, which I didn't mind. It was very this slow burn between them, and you know, like he basically is just fully accepting once she has the baby of being this baby's father. He's very active with the baby. It's just very sweet. There's a lot of sweet things in this. So I did really, really enjoy this book. So I ended up giving it 6 stars. And I think it's my favorite in the series. So definitely had a great time with that one. The last 6 star that I had, I just read it. I actually haven't posted my weekly review for this because it happened, you know, the day after, you know, my usual video. So I haven't done my weekly review, so you'll see this in my next week's review. But I finally read it, and I read Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne. And I'm sure you've probably already read this or seen this everywhere. It's very hyped. So that's, again, why I was nervous to read this. This was actually part of my 12 Recs from 12 Friends. And so I am so excited that I finally read it. This book, to me, was so worth the hype. I fell in love with it. And it's kind of crazy because this is a book with a romance between serial killers. Oops, sorry. Kicked my camera. Sorry about that. This is a romance between serial killers, but it's one of the sweetest feel-good romances I've ever read. Now, there is a lot of dark content in here, some scary, like, not scary, but, you know, dangerous, dark people we're dealing with, because they are serial killers that kill other killers, like other serial killers, so they're doing the good thing, right? But their romance was so sweet that, like, I smiled throughout this whole book. I was just giddy. Like, this, I just did like the mid-year freakout tag, and one of them was like asking a book that made you happy. This book would have been on it, but I hadn't read it yet. This book made me happy. Like, I loved the characters. I loved the setup. I thought it was so unique and fun, and I just adored it. So in this, we have Rowan and Sloane, and basically they are both serial killers. They are killing other serial killers. They kind of have this interesting meet cute, if you want to call it that. The opening of this book is so gory and gross. I was fucking loving it. And they kind of meet up, and Rowan is so into Sloane that he doesn't want to, like, lose her. You could tell she's, like, ready to flee. And so he comes up with this, like, yearly kind of friendly competition between them of, like, they'll get, like, a kind of a hint of a bad guy to kill, and then they compete to see who can kill them first. And basically, whoever wins this big competition, they get to kill this other big serial killer. So that starts years of them communicating, texting throughout the years, yearly doing this competition, and they are just mutually pining for each other. They're so into each other. They live in different states, and there's a lot of stuff going on there. But I just loved this so much. There is some crazy shit that goes on at these competitions, which I absolutely loved. There's a lot of trigger warnings. I'm not even going to bring them up. Just check them. The author's note in the beginning goes over a lot of them. So I'm not going to go over it. But needless to say, I loved Rowan. He was so swoon-worthy. He was almost like a book boyfriend, if you could say that about a serial killer. But he is so sweet, and, like, he is so gone for Sloane. And once they finally get physical and start having sex, it is kinky. And it had one of my favorite things that I've been looking for in books, and that is snowballing. I know, I'm weird. I really like it, and it was done perfectly in this book. I freaking loved it. He's so dominant and alpha and a dirty talk, and there's some crazy piercings, but on the woman, which I thought was really unique and I found fascinating. And I didn't even know what some of the piercings were. I guess I'm just totally clueless. So I had to literally look them up online, which that was interesting when you search that. But I absolutely loved these characters. I even got emotional near the end. Again, it was kind of near that time of the month for me, but I got emotional. I don't know. I just loved this. I thought it was perfection. And so I gave it 6 stars. I gave it 4 chilies. One of the funniest things in here was like her dragon smut, and like he was like totally into it, and he dresses up. And if you know, it's like Katie Roberts' like Dragon's Bride or whatever, where it's like Soul, and he's got 2 dicks. And it was just great, you guys. So there's a lot of kinks in here. You have the dragon cosplay bit, which is a bonus chapter at the end. Edging, a lot of butt stuff, toys, cock warming, and then again, the snowballing, which I fucking loved. So I think I'm getting closer to finally getting my snowballing video, you guys. I can't wait. But I actually annotated this, and I just had so much fun. I just still need to put my tabs in. I like love this book so much. So excited that I finally read this one. Okay, so on to the 5-star reads that I had only got to pick 2 since I was doing a top 5 books for the month. And the one that I really wanted to pick was Chasing the Wild by Elliott Rose. This is my first book I've ever read by them. I got the ARC for this, and this had everything that I love. Like everything that I love. It was ex-boyfriend's dad, cowboy, small town, snowed in, grumpy sunshine. I mean, it was amazing. Obviously age gap because, you know, it's the ex-boyfriend's dad. This is, I think, one of my favorite ex-boyfriend's dads that I've read in a really long time. It might be up there. I absolutely loved this. This is between Colton and Layla. And Layla basically kind of has this loser ex-boyfriend that she needs to drop off his stuff. She kind of moves from job to job because she's going to school to be a vet, and she has to do a lot of like on-job like placement kind of stuff. I forget what it was called. But so she's constantly kind of traveling to go do that. So on her way to the next place, she needs to drop off her ex-boyfriend's pile of shit he won't come get. He had left her an address, and so she kind of has to show up in the middle of this, you know, small town to find this place. It's kind of like in the middle of nowhere. She does have a meet cute with Colton at like the gas station where her card wasn't working. She lives very meagerly, you know, she's paycheck to paycheck, kind of very low income. And for some reason her card wasn't working, and so he offers to help pay. And then they kind of get very flirtatious, and she's very interested. But then she's like, you know, I'm only stopping by. I'm on my way out of town. So that kind of ends that. She goes to the place to drop off the stuff, and lo and behold, it's this guy's place, and it's her ex's dad. So that kind of was uncomfortable. She ends up going this other job. She finds out later that on her way to get to another job a few months later, that her ex had like put her a loan in her name. And so she's like has to pay all this money, and she does not have that. So she's basically forced to stop on her way to go demand him paying this money and confront him. And it happens to be when it's snowing. She goes up this mountain. It's very high up in the mountains, so they get snowed in a lot. And he's not there. So her car breaks down on the way back into town, and she's like forced to go back with like the rude dad. And they kind of get snowed in for some weeks. And so we got snowed in vibes, and they are both so attracted to each other. The sexual tension, the slow burn, the angsty, like mutual pining and like wanting each other, but they can't, was so amazing in this book. And I just really, really loved it. I think it did such a good job of building that tension that like the sex was this book was so kinky and off the charts hot once they finally have sex, which you're like, yes, finally. It's so good. As you can see, a lot of these have that slow burn, angsty, amazing sexual tension. Like, that it was really well done. I really want to look into this author more because I loved this book. I really, really had a great time. So it was very kinky. It did have, oh yeah, so this one was another one that did have snowballing too, so absolutely love that. It did have breeding talk, but not to get pregnant, just dirty talk. They like to talk about it. Some butt play, you know, butt stuff, edging, all of that. So Colton brings it, and he is amazing. He's such a hot cowboy with a dirty mouth, and this was a great time. So I absolutely loved it. Gave it 5 stars, and then it was 4 chilies. So the last book that I have was part of my Rina Kent journey, and I had some iffy reads recently with Rina Kent where I was kind of disappointed. They weren't like holding up to what I usually expected of hers, because I have been reading hers in her reading order. But I really loved this one, and this is Empire of Lust. This is the 4th and final book in the Empire series, and this is between Kingsley and Aspen. And it's really kind of a second chance, enemies to lovers, like hate fucking to its finest. Spicy is all get out. I mean, this book is spicy, because these two have a very contentious relationship. They had a one-night stand, didn't really know who each other were when they were like teens. And she ended up getting pregnant. She thought she lost the baby. She didn't, but the people took it from her and left it with him. And because they had found out who he was, and we don't know how the hell they found out who he was. That's part of the mystery. And so he thought she just abandoned the child. And so now he knows who she is. And guess what? They work at the same firm. You know, they're both lawyers. Him and his partner, they run this law firm. And so they have this contentious relationship, but she's really like just found out about her daughter and wants to build a relationship with her. And I just really loved that aspect of it. And they basically have this undeniable connection, this sexual chemistry. And so they basically decide to start banging it out. They're hate fucking, which leads to a lot more. Aspen, finding out her backstory and what happened to her is just so tragic, and you just really love her character. I really loved her. She was so strong and like a badass woman. She did have a father that was in the mafia, kind of like a hitman, and she set him up to actually get caught and go to prison. So now he might be getting out and he's after her. So there is a suspense element to this book as well, which was really, really good. But I really loved watching Kingsley and Aspen just fall for each other, and like they can't deny their connection, and I just really loved it. I thought the epilogue was so sweet, and I mean, this book was so spicy. So I wanted to put this one in here because I had quite a few like 3.5 stars and just disappointments in some of the Rina Kent ones, and this one just made me so happy, and I really, really loved it. So those are my top 5 books. Just briefly, I'm going to bring up my 2 worst books. I read Pretty Little Savage by Lucy Smoke, and I ended up giving this 2 stars. I doubt I'll continue with the series. It was so over the top. It was supposed to be like a bully romance, but it didn't know what it was, because the heroine was more of a bully than the guy. And it has the thing that I hate, and that's the over the top badass heroine. Like, I'm so badass, like I kick people's asses, I come from the wrong side of the tracks, and I do whatever the fuck I want. And she like literally torches a chick's car because she called her a bitch or some slutty thing or whatever. And it's like, seriously, she'll like punch first, ask questions later, and I just find it so unattractive. I'm totally cool with a chick that's badass, but not in your face badass. And I kind of like the submissive heroine, like that Sam Mariano writes, because of this. Like, it's like, you don't always have to have this badass chick. Anyways, I gave it 2 stars. It had an over-the-top heroine. It had an over-the-top cliffhanger that didn't make sense and was just, okay, are we serious with this? And I think there's like 4 books. I don't know. So I don't know if I liked the hero, and I thought maybe I could continue to see if it got better. I mean, it was on Audible Plus, so if I need an audiobook, I could always try it, probably DNF it, who knows. The other one was Nightfall by Penelope Douglas. I was so disappointed with this book. It was so fucking long and boring and drawn out, and I didn't care about Will's character and his romance. And the thing that really irritated me was it had such gratuitous sex in it, where it was like the train scene where they're all sharing and having sex in front of each other, and I'm like, we don't have to do that in every single book or try to top yourself. It made no sense for the story. It didn't add anything to the plot or the character development, and so it just irritated me. So I ended up giving that one 2.5 stars. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, if you want more detailed explanations on all the books I read, check out my weekly wrap-ups. But I'm actually filming this on 4th of July, so this will be going up the day after. But happy 4th of July. Hope you guys have a great weekend and have a good time. I'm going to go probably get my mom. We're going to go. She makes amazing frozen margaritas with like real fruit and good tequila. So I think I'm going to go talk her into making some margaritas now. But thank you so much for watching. As always, don't forget to subscribe, like, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what your favorite book of the month was, or if you read any of these and loved them as well. I will see you guys on the next one.